Part 1. My daughter-in-law and son forced me to sleep in the garage so they could have space to breathe. My son told me, "You will be fine in the garage for a while." I slept there for 2 nights. On the 3rd night, I handed him an eviction notice. Across the kitchen table, my daughter-in-law spoke in a sharp voice that cut the quiet morning. "Listen, old hag. Inside the house you smother us. The garage is the only place this family can breathe. Treat it like an endurance test. If you make it through the winter, we may change our minds." She slammed her coffee cup hard enough to rattle the saucer. I folded my hands in my lap and felt every bit of my 75 years. For 47 of those years, I had served as a court secretary known for my neat case files and steady voice in chambers. 3 months ago, a mild stroke ended that career. The doctor insisted I should not live alone. My son Michael said moving in with him and his wife was only temporary so they could help. Help, I assumed, meant groceries appointments and keeping track of medication, not exile to a cold garage filled with dusty boxes and forgotten tools. Their house stands in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. On my first morning after the stroke, I thought I was headed toward familiar warmth. Instead, I woke on a folding cot covered by a threadbare blanket. Sawdust coated the floor. No heat, no window for light, only a single flashlight hanging from a nail. I stared at ceiling beams, counting cracks in the paint-missing courtroom corridors and the crisp smell of paperwork. Later, Michael cracked the door. "You okay, Mom?" Concern and reluctance mixed in his voice. He wore rumpled sweats like his wife. I nodded, my throat dry. "We will bring you a space heater soon," he said, "just need to check the breaker." When he shut the door, I heard Rachel whisper, "If she freezes, we avoid power of attorney and property transfers." Her voice rose. Better than dealing with this every day. I lay still, pretending to sleep. My hands felt weak, yet my mind stayed sharp. I had once filed warrants for judges with trembling hands. Now I was the one set aside as useless. Night, too, grew colder. I pulled the thin blanket tight and prayed I would not wake shivering. I thought of my late husband's laugh and the apartment we had sold, of all the documents I had signed in steadier days. Dawn broke with my phone buzzing. I had hidden it in the glove compartment before moving in. My niece called from Baltimore. "Aunt Eleanor, how are you?" she asked. I answered softly. She paused. "You sound cold? Are you safe?" I swallowed. "I am safe," I said. "Mom told me you were in the den." I paused again. "I sleep in the garage." Silence followed. "That is illegal," she said. Then the line went dead. That afternoon, I stayed busy. I found my granddaughter's old blanket inside a toy trunk and used it to line the cot. I angled the flashlight toward the bed to make a small sanctuary, though I knew I was neither welcome nor safe. That evening, voices drifted through the vent. Michael sounded frustrated. "I cannot believe she is still alive." Rachel spoke low but clear. "Better alive until we get the lawyer to say she is incompetent." My chest tightened. Competent. They were arranging paperwork while I shivered. I curled onto my side and cried in silence. Those 2 nights were meant to break me into quiet acceptance. Instead, they taught me something vital. Survival does not require silence, and endurance is not compliance. The spark of that realization carried me to the 3rd dawn. That morning, I would walk into their dining room with steady posture and hand them an eviction notice signed by my lawyer and endorsed by a retired judge who still remembers justice. The first night in that garage felt colder than numbers on a thermostat. I wore every sweater I owned, pulled a rough blanket tight, and tried to ignore the steady draft sneaking under the door that linked to the garage to the house. Each outdoor sound, the rustle of leaves, a distant engine seemed to echo through the thin walls. A metal bar in the cot pressed against my spine, and my bones ached. I curled into myself and waited for dawn. Yet the darkness was not the worst part. Memory kept me awake. I thought of Michael at 8, clutching the lunch bag I packed each morning, hugging me after every spelling bee, whether he won or lost. I remembered typing depositions until my fingers were numb, so he could have new shoes, giving up vacations, so he could study finance 3 states away. Now I lay in his garage like forgotten furniture. At sunrise, I sat on the edge of the cot. Knees stiff, breath visible. A thermos sat on a tray, the water inside already lukewarm. Beside it was a bowl of rice porridge, cold, lacking a spoon. I fished a plastic fork from my purse and ate, forcing down each bite. When the house quieted, I slipped out the side door and walked to the mailbox, mostly to keep my joints from locking. Every step hurt, but I kept my back straight. By afternoon, Rachel's birthday celebration filled the living room. From the cracked upper pane of the garage door, I watched guests arrive with wine and party platters. They taped a gold banner reading "Happy Birthday, Rachel" across the wall, popped champagne, sang, and laughed. No one checked on me, not even to offer cake. That night, a deep cough tore at my throat. I muffled the sound and wiped a trace of blood on my sleeve, hiding the cloth under the mattress. Near midnight, I heard footsteps on the back porch. The garage wall thinned close to the water heater, so I pressed my ear there. Michael's voice, low but clear: "She's still here. Thought she'd last 2 days at most." A pause while he listened. "No, we can't move forward until we prove her incompetent. Once we get 2 more medical reviews, guardianship is ours." Another pause, then a faint chuckle. "She's tougher than she looks, but if she slips even once, forgetfulness, confusion, we file." My stomach lurched. They were not simply cruel. They were strategic. Guardianship meant control of my health decisions, bank accounts, and the house. They were waiting for me to crack. Back on the cot, my hands shook, not with fear but fury. I drew the blanket close, eyes open in the darkness, recalling every statute and procedure I had indexed over decades. By dawn, I had a plan. Not revenge truth delivered with courtroom precision. 2 Christmases ago, my granddaughter Lily handed me a sleek watch. "Stay sharp, Grandma," she said. "It tracks steps, heart rate, and if anything happens, it records." I had worn it mainly to please her. That night, after hearing Michael plot guardianship, I tapped the watch face 3 times. A red blink signaled it was listening. I let it record the whole whispering conspiracy. Morning came. Michael refilled his coffee in the hallway and offered a quick, forced smile. I smiled back, as if nothing had happened. Then I returned to the garage, shut the door, and waited. Later, his college friend Sam arrived, loud and joking. From the kitchen came Sam's laugh. "She's still out there, Michael, yeah, in the garage." Sam whistled. Cold-blooded. Michael shrugged. "The house has been ours since we married. Just missing the paperwork." Rachel chimed in, voice bright. "The garage is the only place she can die without inconveniencing anyone." Laughter followed. I pressed the watch again. Another file saved the audio crisp. That evening, I opened a hidden Wi-Fi network Michael had forgotten. Years earlier, during a renovation I paid for, I added a secondary line just in case. From an old tablet tucked in my suitcase, I transferred the recordings and emailed them to Frances, a former lead clerk in family court. We had shared 2 decades of trials and deadlines. At my retirement, she gave me a yellow rose and whispered, "If you ever truly need me, call." I called. She picked up on the first ring. "I wondered when you'd stop being polite," she said. I sent the files. 5 minutes later, she texted, "Got them. You're not alone. Sit tight. This will move fast." Near midnight, I slipped on my coat and stepped toward the side door where the signal was strongest. My hands trembled under the weight of what I was about to do. Judge Benton's voice answered, still measured and steady despite his retirement. He had once told me, half joking, that if I were ever betrayed, I should call him first. I recited the facts: 2 freezing nights, secret recordings, plans for guardianship. I have dates, voices, faces, I said. He paused, then spoke with the quiet authority that once hushed entire courtrooms. They forgot the sharpest woman in the room. Now they lose. Within hours, Francis drafted a petition. By 3 a.m, we filed for a temporary restraining order, citing elder abuse, coercion, and unlawful living conditions, along with a motion to freeze my assets. I did not sleep. I sat upright on the cot, robe drawn tight, shadows flickering across the walls. At 7:13, my phone buzzed. Order granted. Emergency injunction approved. Enforcement within 12 hours. Relief washed through me like warmth. 12 hours. That was all I needed to step out of the shadows and back into the light of due process. By 9 that morning, Francis had already reached a court-appointed officer and local police. My name was cleared from every dependent status Michael had filed. A forensic auditor began to trace recent activity in my accounts. At noon, Rachel scrolled through her phone while Michael brewed coffee. I walked out of the garage, crossed the kitchen, and laid a sealed envelope on the table. Michael looked up. "Mom, you okay?" I slid the envelope toward him with 2 fingers. "Effective immediately," I said. He gave a quick laugh, sure it was some joke. Then Francis stepped in behind me, followed by an officer in uniform. The officer held a clipboard. Michael's smile faded. He tore open the envelope. His eyes locked on the court-stamped notice of protective order, elder abuse, financial coercion, neglect. Plaintiff Eleanor May Harper. Defendant Michael Stephen Harper. Rachel's mug slipped from her hand and shattered. "What is this?" "Restraining order," Francis answered. "And notice of financial investigation." Michael tried to speak, but the officer raised a hand. "You are advised to remain silent. Any contact with Ms. Harper violates this order." "You cannot be serious," Michael said, face flushing. "She is my mother." I met his eyes. "You put me in a garage to die. You plotted to take everything I own." The officer handed him a second packet. "You have 1 hour to pack. During the next 30 days, you may not contact or approach Ms. Harper. Any breach can result in arrest." Rachel backed into the hallway, pale. Michael's shoulders sagged. He looked like a boy who had suddenly noticed the roof missing over his head. They left in 58 minutes, escorted to separate cars. The garage sat empty by nightfall. I wrapped myself in the navy coat Charles once gave me and took a seat at the kitchen table, the chair they said I did not deserve. I opened a window and let the cold air in, not because I had to, but because I chose to. The following week, my story slipped from courthouse filings into the public square. A local reporter named Terry, whom I remembered from my clerk days, heard whispers about a protective order issued in record time. She called Francis, asking if I would talk. I agreed. At Francis's office, I recounted the events with the same clarity I once used for court briefs: the stroke, the garage, the recorded plans for guardianship, the birthday party on the other side of a thin wall. No tears, no drama, just dates and voices. Terry listened, eyes wide, then requested copies of the audio. Francis handed them over. "Thank you for listening to today's stories. Part 2 will be updated soon. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.